All right.
Good to be here.
Then I want to call the meeting to order. Either Stephanie or Guadalupe, you guys want to do a roll call?
Yeah, you can go ahead and do that. All right. Okay, Helen Burks,
Here.
Marisol Cantu, which I think I heard that she is absent for today's meeting. Eddie Chacon,
Here.
Luis Chacon. I do believe, sounds like he also has an excused absence. Okay. Don Gosney.
Here.
Randy Joseph,
I'm here.
Kristen Killian Lobos,
I'm here.
Armand Lee,
Here.
Laura Mangles,
Here.
Marcus Engesang, absent. Joey Schlemmer also has an excused absence. Deborah Small,
Present.
Andres Soto, absent. Ben Terrio,
Present.
Tamisha Walker,
Present.
Linda Whitmore, okay, absent. And BK Williams.
Here.
Well, thank you. So for the record, we have 11 present and 6 absent.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. Agenda review and adoption. Does anyone have any questions, additions, or comments about the agenda?
Chair Small, I do have an issue, not an issue with the agenda, but I do want to advise you that I have a hard stop at 7:30 because I have a flight to catch tonight. So if there are items on the agenda, such as the working groups or the bylaws that you want my input on, you may want to hear those first unless you think that we'll be done by 7:30.
Well, my intention is for us to complete on time at 7:30, Allison, but there are a couple of issues that we might want your input on. So I'm up for moving item 4 up to item 2, since Acting Chief Torona is not here. So we can get to that. Does anyone have any objections to that? And with Linda, I see you're here. Greetings. Wonderful. So does anyone have any objection to that change? And then I want to, I don't know if we need to have a separate agenda item, but I do want to talk about our meeting schedule.
In order to talk about it, and Allison, you can correct me if I'm wrong, it needs to be agendized to have that conversation.
Right,
Why?
that's correct.
I'm sorry, explain why our meeting schedule has to be agendized. We have a discussion on here about working group structure in meetings. That would incorporate the task force. So I'm just wanting some clarity as to why that would have to be a separate agenda item.
Well, I'm assuming you're referring to agenda item number, which is the working group structure and membership for the next 6 months. I don't think that would be broad enough to encompass the meeting schedule for the task force generally.
So you're saying in order to have any discussion at all about our meeting schedule, it has to be agendized in advance?
Yes.
Let's go forward with adopting the agenda as is.
I make a motion to adopt the agenda as is.
Any second?
Sorry, Chair Small, can I just clarify, you did recommend moving item 4 up after item 1. Is that what you mean by as is, or you want to keep it in the order?
No, I'm including the revision that I suggested that no
Okay.
one objected to.
Okay, thank you.
And I move the same as she just clarified.
Can we take a vote?
Chair Small, I don't think we have to take motions on the agenda anymore, do we?
Allison,
Can
if
we
there's a
just-
change to the order of the agenda, does there need to be a formal a vote?
Not as far as I know. As long as there's no objection, I don't think there needs to be a formal motion.
Thank you.
Is there any objection to the change that we've made to the current agenda? Okay, then let's move on to meeting procedures.
All right, thank you. I will do that announcement. Okay. So I will now read an announcement to the public. Anyone may make an oral comment, even if a written comment has previously been submitted. However, each speaker may raise their hand only once to make one oral public comment per agenda item. We will hold public comment very shortly after item F, City Staff Liaison Reports. So if you would like to speak during public comment, please raise your hand now. To comment by video conference, click on the participants button at the bottom of your screen and select the raise your hand button. To comment by phone, you will be prompted to raise your hand by pressing *9. For agenda items under item H, presentations, discussions, and action items, you may use the raise my hand feature to express your interest in providing verbal public comment for each agenda item. An announcement will be made when it is time for public comment. So now we will be moving on to the next item,
which is approving the minutes. So the first item is approval of the minutes from March 23rd, 2022.
And Chair Small, it is, if you would like, you can take, if I'm not mistaken, you can take all the minutes together in one motion for approval versus taking them individually, but that is up to you, Mr. Chair.
This is Don Gosnell. I have questions on number 2, so taking them as a group won't work.
Thank you.
So I'm looking for a motion for the minutes for Wednesday, March 23rd, unless someone has some objection. Was that
move to
you,
accept.
Randy?
Yes, that is.
Second? Was
Second.
that you, Don, seconding?
Sure, why not?
Is there any discussion? Then let's call the vote.
all right. So let me go ahead and do this real quick. Okay, Helen Burks,
Aye.
Eddie Chacon.
I abstain.
Give me 1 second here. Don Gosney,
Yes.
Randy Joseph,
Yes.
Kristen Killian Lobos,
Yes.
Armand Lee,
Yes.
Laura Mangles,
Yes.
Deborah Small,
Yes,
Ben Terrio,
Yes.
Tamisha Walker,
Yes.
Linda Whitmore.
Before I vote, question, if you're absent, can you still vote if you read the information and even if you weren't there? Can you vote yes? Or do you have to abstain?
no, you can vote to approve minutes as long as you've read them
Okay,
and are okay with them.
okay, I just want to make sure. Okay, so yes.
Okay, BK Williams.
Yes.
Okay, so the motion passes with 11 voting yes, 1 abstention, and 5 absent.
Okay, so the next item is to approve the minutes from the April 13th meeting, the special meeting. Is there any discussion of those minutes?
Yes, there is.
Are you raising your hand, Don?
I guess I am. I'm sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Down there near the end, under item J, it says adjournment, but the next line is actually referring to a recess. I believe that for this part of it, it should actually say recess because it's mislabeling it if it says an adjournment. But I also have a concern but it says that we rejoined the meeting at 6:15 and we finally adjourned at 6:50. What happened in those 35 minutes? There's nothing on the minutes that indicates anything that happened. I'd like to know more.
So there was a 10-minute recess because one of the members had to leave briefly for another call or meeting, and that ended our quorum. They rejoined 10 minutes later at 6:15, and we restarted the meeting, and we finally ended at 7:50.
I
We
understand.
continued the rest of the business. Now, I did not take the minutes, so I cannot tell you exactly what we did between 6:15 and 7:50. If you want to read or listen to the recording, I'm sure that would give you that information.
He might give me that information, but for the person that doesn't have access to the video recording, the minutes are supposed to say what happened. And that's my concern, that before we approve this, it should actually say what happened at between 6:15 and 6:50.
If we need to, and there's a desire, we can go back and update these set of minutes and bring them back at the next meeting for approval. Happy to.
Thank you, LaShonda. You can fill in that information for that period.
I see. I need to make a correction here. I said 35 minutes. It was an hour and 35 minutes worth of a meeting.
Yes, we will go back and we will update and bring it back at your next meeting.
Okay, and again, the title for item J, adjournment. I said, I believe it should be just recess.
We will fix that. Thank you for bringing
Thank you
that
very
to our
much.
attention. You're welcome. Appreciate it.
Any other comments about the minutes from the special meeting? So barring none, this item will be tabled until the next meeting. We'll get revised minutes from city staff, which means the next item is the next minutes.
Move we approve.
I haven't said what they were yet.
Okay, then I'll just shut up.
I didn't say that either,
That's a message.
not from me. Next item is approve the minutes of the April 27th regular meeting of the task force. Does anyone have any comments or concerns about those minutes? Hearing none, then I'm entertaining a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved by Randy Joseph.
There a second?
I'll second it.
Is that Luis, Eddie?
Ben Terrio.
Ben, okay, sorry, I couldn't see who
No,
it was. Thank
no
you,
problem.
Ben. Okay, we have a motion. Is there any discussion of the motion? If not, we can call the vote.
All right. All right, Helen Burks,
Aye, and I'm gonna have to change devices if you see me drop out.
oh, thank you. Eddie Chacon,
I abstain.
Don Gosney.
No vote.
Is that an abstention or no? I
That
just
is-
want to be clear.
That is no vote, period.
Okay, got it.
Okay.
Go ahead. Sorry about that, LaShonda. I just wanted to be clear. Guadalupe.
Randy Joseph,
Yes.
Kristen Killian Lobos,
Yes.
Armand Lee,
Yes.
Laura Mangles,
Yes.
Deborah Small,
Yes.
Ben Terrio,
Yes.
Tamisha Walker,
Yes.
Linda Whitmore,
Yes.
and BK Williams.
Yes.
Okay, so that motion passes with 10 ayes, no nos, 1 abstention, and I guess 6 absent. Not sure about the,
Can you repeat that, Guadalupe? I'm sorry.
yeah, so 10 ayes, no nos, one abstention, and I guess it would be 6 absences if Don doesn't want to do a vote. And then that should pass because it's a majority of the quorum.
Lupe, I'm
Okay.
not sure that if Don is saying no vote, that means he's absent. So it,
Right.
it will either need to be an abstention or a no vote. We have to place them in a box. He has to be in a
Thank you,
category, if I'm not
LaShonda.
mistaken. And Allison, please correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you're right, LaShonda. I think having a no vote would have the effect of an abstention, sorry.
Okay, thank
Okay.
you.
So 2 abstentions.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is city staff report.
So thank you, everyone. Good evening. Appreciate you all being here. LaShonda White, staff liaison to the task force, and also serve as the interim director for community services. I want to, of course, always thank Lupe and Stephanie for their support in getting the agendas out. Thank you, Chair Small, for that also, and their support during the actual meeting. And thank you, Allison, for being here. And thank you all, as well as the additional city staff that are on this call and providing updates through this meeting. A few announcements I want to make. I just want to thank all those who came out to celebrate Juneteenth with the city of Richmond and the NBA, which is the organization that really put it forward. I wasn't able to attend, unfortunately, but I heard it was great. And so if you all were able to attend, thank you for doing that. We always like to celebrate the diversity and community here in Richmond. Also, be ready for 3rd of July. We have not had a 3rd of July celebration in a few years because of COVID, but we'll be back at the marina, and we're going to have fireworks that start at 9:15, but you can bring out your lawn chairs and your blankets and just hang out. We'll have some food vendors. So just enjoy the warm weather and join us for fireworks at 9:15 on July 3rd. Also want to invite all of you out to a community meeting. There'll be 2 that will happen a few weeks apart. The first one is Monday, June 27th at 5:30 p.m. The second one is Monday, July 11th at 5:30 p.m. And this is all things ARPA. So the American Rescue Plan Act is an act that the federal government, the president signed a few years ago, and it provided all jurisdictions within the United States COVID relief funds to be able to help support their residents in their communities, as well as small businesses, all those most impacted by the impacts of COVID, help them recover, and then have help them deal with the immediate impacts, but also have an equitable recovery. So the city of Richmond received $27.7 million from the federal government, and our city council, as part of last year's budget or the current year budget cycle, already allocated $10.5 million to various projects, but we still have over $17 million available, and want to have conversations with community, especially those most impacted. And we're having a community meeting. So we invite all of you to attend. We'll make sure you all get flyers. And like I said, the first one is this upcoming Monday, and then the other one is July 11th. So please come out, please share. We want to hear from community about how we can best invest this money to help our residents. And I think that is it for my announcements. Stephanie or Lupe, am I missing anything? Or Allison? Nope. All right. Thank you.
So LaShonda, I had a couple of questions for you and Allison, following up on some things that came up at the last task force meeting. I'm assuming this would be the appropriate time to raise them.
It probably depends on what you want to raise.
Well, this has to do with the Form 700, which was one of the things that LaShonda reported on at the last task force meeting, that the task force members were required to fill out. There have been some questions about it, so I wanted to take this opportunity to ask some of those questions and get some clarification from the 2 of you around that.
Allison, I'll let you answer that. I actually don't have information about Form 700s. That'll be the clerk, the city clerk's office that manages that process. So Allison, I don't know if this is the appropriate time or, but I personally don't have answers to anything regarding Form 700, unfortunately.
I may or may not have the answers. I will confess I'm not an expert on Form 700s. If you want to provide me with your questions or any questions from any of the other task force members, I'm happy to answer them in a separate forum, though.
I'm sorry, I don't understand. I mean, this came up at the last task force meeting. We were told that we were expected to fill them out. We weren't given a lot of information about exactly what they were for or what information was required, which is what I'm about to ask about. So why would that have to be in a different forum than this meeting?
Only because I may not have the answers to your
Oh,
question.
no, I'm fine if
Yeah.
you have to come back with answers. I'm asking, is this the appropriate time and place to ask the questions?
I don't know. I mean, it isn't on the agenda, and generally speaking, items that aren't agendized aren't supposed to be discussed.
Well,
But there is a good chance that,
the initial information about the form was not agendized either. It was part of a staff report.
right. But as part of the staff report, it was agendized under that.
No, it wasn't. It was just given
Yeah,
to
so
us
I don't
orally.
I don't, Allison, I don't agendize staff report items. If they come up and I need to just share verbally, which is something that is happening, it happens at city council meetings where there are verbal reports provided by staff at city council meetings. That's very similar to what I'm doing. So
I mean, it can't be that we can't talk about things that were not agendized, but staff can talk about anything, whether it's agendized or not. That doesn't work. Either it works, it should, I have no problem with staff giving oral reports, but then I think we should be able to come and ask questions about those reports without it having to be previously agendized.
And when I said agendized at the last meeting, I did mean under the oral staff reports, but I'm suggesting a different forum only because I probably won't have the answers off the top of my head. But if you provide me with your questions, I can either come back at the next meeting or we can discuss it.
That would be fine. What's not okay is to be told we can't talk about it because it wasn't on the agenda. So I'm happy to ask the questions and you can tell us if you have the answers, and if not, it can come back at the next meeting. But
Okay.
the questions came up as a result of the staff report.
Right.
So
Okay,
my
so what
question is specifically, what is the category under which task force members are expected to file, and what specific income information are they expected to provide on their Form 700?
Okay. That
So-
information I don't know off the
Yeah,
top of my
I
head.
don't have that either. That question is noted. So the question is noted. And I think what my purpose in sharing last month about Form 700 was to give the task force a heads up that the city clerk's office was going to send all of you an email. So that was what that item was for. I didn't have additional information at that time, and I still don't, but we will make sure that any questions that you all have, we can get them to the city clerk's office or to the city attorney's office and get responses to all of you. I can BCC, or we can come back at the next meeting.
Well, the form itself is asking for a fair amount of financial information, which is personal and confidential information. So I think that task force members should be clear about what information they're required to provide, under what circumstances, and where that information will be held and who will have access to it, as opposed to just telling us that we have to fill out a form.
We will, like the question is noted, and we will make sure the appropriate staff in the city have that information and can answer your questions.
Maybe they can come to the next meeting if it's something that, you know, we need to do. But I
Yeah,
just
I will.
think that it would be appropriate, since none of us had heard anything about this form prior to the meeting, that we be given more information about exactly what's expected.
We will share with the clerk's office.
And the other question I have related to that, Allison, is that the form speaks specifically to people who may or may not have some form of income that comes from a city or agency. We have task force members who work for the city. We have task force members who are employees of organizations that get support from the city. So we really need to be clear about exactly what information is required.
Okay, understood.
Does anyone else have any questions about this form? I got the email this next day. I'm assuming everyone else has gotten their email. I see your hand, Ben.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I guess I have two questions. One with the Form 700 is the due date is still the 27th of this month, but is that correct?
If that's what the clerk's office had in their email, I would say yes, but
So can we seek guidance? Oh, sorry. Can we seek guidance from the clerk's office specifically?
yes,
Or okay,
yes, by
unilaterally?
all
Okay.
means, because they're the ones, they just asked me to give you all a heads up that it was coming, so you knew to look out for an email about
Yeah.
it.
I mean, just having run for office before, I mean, obviously the chair's comments and concerns are valid. It's very tricky, and then you don't want to leave something off. It should be on, et cetera. And that's, the Form 700 practically requires, a lawyer to help out with, in many regards because of, potential, what people do in their personal lives, et cetera. But and then the other thing too, just if I'm out of pocket here, Chair, let me know. But they're kind of go hand in hand from the from this report. But is there an update? Wasn't there supposed to be an update on anything that we were supposed to do for emails, release, et cetera? Is that also kind of part and parcel with this as well, or is that something different?
I believe that's a different item, but
Okay.
you're perfectly free to raise it now if you want to, Ben.
Okay. Yeah,
if you have a question about that.
Yeah, just thank you. I mean, my question is just, is there anything outstanding that we need to do on that? Is that something that you are telling us individually as persons on this body, or is that something that we all as a whole, or how is that being done? Thank you.
And Ben, I assume you're speaking to the Public Records Act request?
Yeah, sorry.
No, I just want to make sure.
Yeah, you're right. I should have explained that. Yes, the PRAs.
So there's been numerous PRAs that have come to this task force, and we have shared many times that they have been due. And if you're an individual that knows you still have something outstanding, please get it to us ASAP. But otherwise, we will connect with you individually if something is outstanding or if we haven't heard from you. So we are trying to make sure we have everything together and working with the city attorney's office and the city clerk's office to see if anything is outstanding or if we're missing anything from anyone. But there's been a lot of requests, and so we're just trying to make sure all our T's are crossed and I's are dotted. So you will hear from us individually.
Okay, same here. Thank you, and thanks, Chair.
Thank you.
You have any other questions, Ben?
No, thank you.
Randy, did I see your hand?
No, I was just agreeing with what Lasanda and Ben were saying.
Those were the only questions that I had. Does anyone else have any questions that they want to direct to city staff? If not, I guess it would be appropriate for us to now go to public comment.
Yes, and so Lupe already read the statement around public comment. Oh, Allison, did you have something? Sorry. Okay, Lupe already read the statement around public comment, but if anyone does want to make a comment on anything that is not on the agenda, or any comments or questions with regards to my verbal report, please do so during open forum. You will have 2 minutes. We will time you for your public comment. Please remain respectful in your comments, and you can raise your hand or you can push *9, and we will begin.
We do have one emailed public comment, so I'll go ahead and read that first. Since I don't see any hands raised in the audience. This was a public comment from Cordell Hindler. Unfortunately, the event that he wanted to share with you has already passed, but I just wanted to read it into the record. Good evening, Chair Small, task force members and staff. I would like to invite the task force to the El Cerrito Chamber of Commerce luncheon, June 22nd, 2022, 11:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. at El Mono Restaurant. Visioning for small businesses, $25 for members, $27 for non-members. Sincerely, Cordell. And again, unfortunately, this has already passed. And that is the conclusion of his public comments. We have a hand raised in the audience. Lupe, can you pull up this? Thank you. So someone named O'Neill, you have 2 minutes to speak and you can start now.
Hi, I'm O'Neill from SOS Richmond. I'm just wanting, here speaking on, what the company is doing for us, for me and my girlfriend and our child to come. We went from living in a tent and living on Castro to now we're both employed and in been put into programs into getting us a roof over our head, and I mean, this company has done amazing things for our lives. I mean, we're both sober. You know, it's just it's something that pulled us out of a dark place, and we're going a lot further with us with our lives through the SOS Richmond, not just employment, like I said, our housing and just our lives in general. And I mean, every day we go to Castro, I'm speaking about me personally, we go to Castro and take out heaps of trash and speak to each person there and communicate with each individual there, trying to better their lives as well, trying to inspire them to do, whatever it needs for them to get their life in a better track. And I mean, none of it would be possible for my family if without SOS Richmond. That's pretty much all that's what I want to say. Was SOS Richmond has really done a lot for my life, my family's life in general, and supporting the people is what we're trying to do every day out here. That's all.
Thank you, O'Neill. Oh, there was someone that had their hand raised. Looks like they put it back down. So no more hands from the public, but we do have hands raised from the task force. Oh, we do have 2 more hands raised from the public. Jose Galaz, you have 2 minutes to speak. You can start now.
Okay, hi, my name is Jose Galaz, and I am the operations manager for SOS. At one point in my life, so I know the struggle, but I really, first of all, I think most of our team is hosting now. We're living in it really, I mean, it motivates me every day to see people they're you see the light turn on, as they say, they're motivated, they're working. We have people in there that have started to become and one of those people is Seisha, who's also here next to me. I don't know if she's in a minute. I just want to introduce her really quick. She's a little bit nervous. And this is Seisha.
Seisha SOS to do the mobile shower unit that goes around to the encampment, Castro, and give people showers or let people who need to take showers there. I was able to I work for them, and I was able to get a trailer and everything else from the we get the people that help out a lot of people. Pretty good. We need people like this.
And yeah, I mean, when when you don't have a bathroom to take a shower and you have a place to take a shower, it is priceless. I mean, it really right there, and then you feel refreshed, motivated, and then sometimes you're like, okay, I can go see a family member now. I can go see my mom. I can go see my dad. And that's a big thing. So anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Jose.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Randy Scott. Randy, you have 2 minutes to speak. You can start now.
Hi, I'm an employee for SOS. I've been there off and on for the last 2 years, and I want to talk about how it's impacted my personal life working there. I'll say that I hadn't had a bank account or any kind of connection to government or public other than through the criminal justice system. And now I have a checking account that I've had for 2 years. I've had a phone that I've had for 2 years. I drive an automobile. I can afford rent. I even got jury summons. I got off parole early, the first time in 33 years that I'm off parole. And this was the first Christmas of my whole life, since my adult life, that I was not under any supervision by any probation or parole or anybody. My life has changed completely because SOS and Daniel Barth hired me at the stage I was at in my personal development, which was at the bottom. And he's worked with me the whole time, and everybody else is allowed to come in there as they are and give an opportunity to uplift themselves, and by uplifting other people. You know, it's easy to get in your own head when you want to be negative, but every day you work and you're helping other people, it's positive, and it reflects on you, whether you know it or not. It's something that's very important to keep on going. It needs to be expanded and thought about and talked about, because it works. It really does work. And not only that, you get paid. You have a paycheck, and it's you have an office to go to, you have meetings, you have a family. And it's my first job in 27 years, other than being a library clerk or a kitchen worker in the penitentiary. So it's a good thing. I've got a driver's license now. I've got a motorcycle license now. All my cars and my stuff is registered and taken care of, and with the titles and insurance. I'm a legitimate member of society now. Legitimate. And it's the first time in my life. And that's what I want to say.
Thank you. I also realized I missed an emailed public comment. We received a flyer for a career fair from Arto Rentila. The career fair is June 25th, this Saturday, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Hilltop Community Church, 3118 Shane Drive, Richmond at 94806. You can meet with people that can provide tips and direction to jobs and careers with good salaries, benefits, and training. So career fair this Saturday at Hilltop Community Church. Our next public comment is from Allison Gill. Allison, you have 2 minutes to speak. You can start now.
Oh, that's me. Okay. I'm here as Allison, but I'm really Daniel. And I actually was withdrawing my hand because I was so delighted that 3 of the staff who wanted to speak actually got up there and spoke. 4 staff, actually. I'm just really, it makes me feel really great. And now that you called on me, I may as well say a few things. And you just made an announcement about employment and training. I didn't quite hear it because I'm taking this moment all in, but we're trying to get an apprenticeship. We're trying to get a relationship with Tamara over at ENT, and we're going to have a meeting in the next couple of days on the 30th. I would like to keep our staff on staff long enough that they can get trained to go somewhere else. And until then, the most beautiful thing that we see is that we have this steady crew that has been so rock solid. I tell you, it's amazing to be at our work yard, which we had gotten donated to us from Bridge Storage on Caltrans land. The fact that we can roll out our equipment, 3 shifts going, because we went double down to take care of Castro in addition to the rest of the city, is a testament to just like Randy and O'Neill and Seisha and Jose said, a testament to the real progress that happens every single day. There's so much that we could talk about. And I did give a presentation, and I know there's going to be a report coming up, and I only have 35 seconds. There's going to be a report, and there's probably going to be a recommendation to not sole source, and I understand that. And I would like to see a collaboration formed in the coming months where we bring together grassroots fledgling organizations to do unhoused interventions in a way that is inclusive and collective in its action and in its impact. And so with that, I'll say thank you for trusting us this past year, and I hope we can continue going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, no more speakers from the public. Chair Small, you have 2 minutes. You can go. You can start now. You're muted.
I'm sorry, I don't have my hand up for that. I'm recognizing Don Gosney. Let me lower my hand.
Don, you have 2 minutes to speak.
Thank you. I've received 2 texts tonight from members of the public requesting that task force members turn on their cameras so that they can see that they're actually here and that we still have a quorum. Thank you.
Thank you. Next would be Kristen Killian Lobos. You have 2 minutes. You can go ahead and start.
Yeah, thank you. I just have an announcement for a community event. This one's close to my heart. It's an event for Support for Recovery nonprofit. I was on their board for a number of years. It's our 15-year anniversary event and recovery fair event. It's going to be this coming Saturday, June 25th at the Martinez Waterfront Picnic Area. The event starts at 10 a.m. It's 10 to 3. And the first 150 people get a really good, delicious lunch that will be served. We'll have resource tables, music, speakers, and it'd be great to come out. Maybe SOS and Daniel and folks would like to come. And that's my announcement. Thanks.
Yeah. Next is Randy Joseph. Randy, you have 2 minutes to speak. You could go ahead and start.
Hi, everybody. Part about, reimagining public safety, is bringing message about, health and awareness that's going on in the city of Richmond. I do want to just bring attention to make sure that, COVID is still running active. It's still a thing. People are still getting sick and it's still contagious. Make sure that people are getting, wearing a mask if possible in public places, making sure that people are getting vaccinated and taking care of yourself. And if you're sick, please stay in the house. I recently just lost a friend to COVID 2 weeks ago. And people thinking that it's passed and it's not. And the rates are high in Richmond, and it's been killed. It's been peaking, going down, and going back up. And I know it's the summer. People want to go back outside. And people want to be active again, and I understand that. But please be safe. COVID is still a danger out there, and I want everybody to be happy and healthy and enjoy life. So please, COVID's really a thing. Please take care, get vaccinated if you can, wear a mask where you can, and if you're sick, please stay indoors. Stay inside and isolate. That's all.
Yeah, and that will be the end of the public comment period.
Okay, so the next item on our agenda is presentation, discussion, and action items. And our first presentation will be from Matrix Consulting. I believe that we have with us Richard Brody and Devin Clunis. Did I pronounce your name correctly?
Yes, you did.
Okay, so I don't know which one of you is going first, but take it away. Thank you so much for being here tonight too.
Thank you very much for inviting us. We have this study that we're conducting for the city, and we're in the portion of the study where we're gathering as much community input as we can. And so we want to talk to you a little bit about the study and how you can help us. I provided someone a PowerPoint presentation. Can they put that on, or, oh, I can share it on my screen. So again, thank you for the opportunity to allow us to meet with you. We are conducting what's called an emergency services analysis for the city of Richmond. It's looking at police and fire and emergency communications. And I'll explain a little bit about the study and And what we're here to do is talk just a little bit about the study. I know your time is scarce and valuable. I want to turn it over to Devon in just a minute or two so he can talk to you and listen to you about what's important about public safety to you. So just quickly, something about our firm. We've been around for 20 years now. We do a lot of things for local government, but working with police departments and fire departments in California and around the country and in Canada is the most important part of our business. We've worked with over 100 police and fire departments, 100 police departments and 100 fire departments in California alone, but we've worked in almost every state in the country. So we are well known as a firm that helps to our clients to make sure that their police and fire departments are appropriately engaged and supporting with the community, as well as having the resources that they need to be able to do that. Our scope of work in this study is simple. It's to look at staffing, but to challenge the staffing service delivery approaches that are currently in place in Richmond, and to look at alternatives, such as alternative response to crisis situations, such as alternative response to emergency medical calls and crisis calls and lower priority calls for service. We're known as being a fact-driven process, and we're going to be doing that as part of this study, but getting community input is very important for the development of this plan as well. We've conducted a large number of interviews within the police and fire departments already. We've offered to do 6 community groups, and this is the second one that we've held. The first one was with the Richmond Neighborhood Coordinating Council. We're going to have some open ones later on in the process, and some co-sponsored ones like this one as well. So again, we're looking at service delivery and looking at ways to improve service with the limited resources that the city has right now. Throughout this process, which will take us through the summer into September, we will be quite transparent on our findings, conclusions, and recommendations, and we'll present those in the public to the public as we near the conclusion of this process. So as I said, it'll take us through the month of September, and that's how that does that. So I'm going to turn it over to Devon, have him take a minute to talk about himself and how we'd like to hear from you in our portion of this meeting this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Chair Small, members of the task force, just like to let you know that I've been operating in this arena now for 35+ years as a police officer, a chief of police, a consultant, an inspector general of policing. Public safety is incredibly important to me. It's something that I'm truly passionate about. And I think we all recognize that change is coming in terms of public safety and what it looks like. Reimagining public safety is certainly incredibly important. But as consultants, we certainly don't want to come into your city and tell you this is how it needs to look. We want to hear from you. And so that's what we'd like to do right now, is just engage you in a bit of a conversation, get your feedback, because that will inform the plan that we'll put forward to help transform police and community safety, fire responses moving forward in your city. That's what this is about for us. So if you're ready, I'll ask the first question. And simply, I would like to know what has been the relationship between the task force and emergency services in Richmond since the inception of the task force. What do you feel the relationship has been like? Who would like to be the first to get us started? How have you felt that's been? Has it been well received? What has the relationship been like? Go ahead, Mr. Gosney. Thank you.
So is there a mechanism where we can bring this to your attention offline rather than going out here in public?
Yeah.
Of course, I'll put in the chat both of our email addresses, and that way you can have it.
Certainly, Ms. Burks, go ahead.
Thank you. I would say that in a broad stroke that the relationship between the public safety officers and this group have been distant. And I think there's a variety of contributing factors to that. but I would highlight where there's been the most communication that happened in subgroups and then also in the implementation committee. And when the implementation committee stopped, I think there was a decrease in the amount of collaboration. I would also say that there's been multiple requests for updates, for instance, from RPD. We were hoping to have one tonight from Acting Chief Torona. That wasn't able to happen. And I know that that was a piece of frustration, I'll just say for myself, and feeling like we weren't able to have the level of like communication that could have improved the work. Again, we could go a lot deeper into like why that is or how that happened, but that's just my quick snippet for you.
Thank you. You touched on communication, and we always like to say communication is key in any type of relationship. So thank you for that. Next hand, Ms. Christian Killian Lobos, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree that with Helen that in smaller groups, smaller working groups, subgroups, or one-on-one, or when with the rare opportunity to see each other and face-to-face in person, things go much better in terms of communicating and building bridges and agreeing on things. I think a huge challenge has been many different staff changes, not just in city staff, but at the police department and our fire chief. And, you know, I've had to like kind of get to know a lot of different people in the last 2 years just because things keep changing. And so that's really slowed down the work. And that's just unfortunate. And I think that's happening not just in our city, but all over the United States. It's just been a really challenging time to try to do this work during a pandemic. And I personally just have a lot of feelings of discouragement. I think that things could have, I think communication could have been a lot better. I think things didn't have to feel so divisive or have these huge chasms of division. I felt like we kind of started out, or I was hopeful that we could have worked together a lot better than we have. And there's just been a lot of things that have slowed down the process that have been just personally frustrating.
Thank you for that. So I cannot see everyone on my screen. So if there's some hands up that anybody else notices, please just unmute. Are there any other hands?
Randy Joseph has his hand up.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hello, Miss. How you say your last name for me again?
Clunas.
Clunas. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you for this, Ms. Clunas. I think, you know, it's like 3 phases of the relationship. I think the first phase was trying to like informational, see what was going on, and then the second phase felt confrontational, meaning it was like us against them at one point, and that's how it played out in public, like a duel between 2 parties, like we were taken away from them to support us, and you know, too many situations, and it didn't feel like we were on the same page or in the same area, or sometimes even in the same city. But as we in this third phase, and then like for me, I have the added benefit of being part of the Community Police Review Commission, where I work closely with RPD and certain things, and gotten to see some of the processes behind the scenes. So I may have a different relationship, but through conversations, especially with Ben, who's part of the RPOA and is a police officer, to get and understand and to work together in certain things. I think towards this last couple of months, I think our communications actually got better from my end with RPD. Not so much fire. I haven't really talked with fire, to be honest with you. I think I've probably seen them once or twice in the task force, but mostly working with RPD and getting those conversations I've seen. I think like we've had conversation. I think, you know, trying to figure out certain things in a whole with the task force has been kind of difficult, but like those behind the scenes conversations, I think have happened more and more, and some shifts have already happened. So those things I do want to bring to light, but I think like it's been like 3 different chapters.
Yeah, thank you very much for those comments. And I think they're really wise just to help people to understand the process to form in those relationships. And so I think you've laid it out quite nicely. So thank you for that. Any other hands up that I'm not seeing on that first question? Okay, so I've heard relationship come up, I think, in all the comments we've heard so far. And so we talked about, okay, what's worked well and where are there opportunities for improvement? I think I'm hearing in terms of improvement, it's those lines of communication, but you want to tell me anything else that's worked really well and opportunities that you see to enhance things moving forward? Ms. Burks, go ahead.
Yeah, I kind of referenced them vaguely, but just to give some detail to it. And this is not always work that I was immediately involved in, but I saw the results of collaboration. One was we had a subgroup that Randy and Ben and several others were in that brought forward several recommendations. And they also brought like a presentation to RPD. It was, I think, the Green Key technology. And there was a very focused group. And since it had a specific and focus to it, I think that was a place for greater communication. The second that I'll lift up is the work that was being done in the implementation subcommittee, specifically around the crisis response program. There was a lot of really strong collaboration. I know the fire chief was in a lot of those meetings, as well as RPD when available. So those I think are just like, there were specific projects that were ones that our group and the public safety like kind of aligned in seeing them as priority. And because of that, right, there was this very focused point of, now you're talking about like the how rather than like the what, if that makes sense. So I think in conversations where it's been about the what, like what should happen and like, should this happen? That's where there's been more division. And so, and then I think the missed opportunities, I referenced it before, but I think there was actually some friction amongst even within our task force between, we had asked for the police chief to come to our meetings, but it sounded like city staff at the time, who's no longer supporting this group, didn't pass along that request. So on the one hand, we were thinking that the request had been given and was being denied. And on the other hand, it was, we've never been invited. So there's that difficulty of when things are going through multiple people, when there's communication that's not direct. And I'm not trying to sit here and like just do blaming, but just I think that those were some of the moments where things broke down.
Yes, and I don't hear you blaming. I think it's really important for us to highlight what worked and what didn't work. It's about a process oftentimes more than it is about people. So thank you for laying that out very kindly. Any other thoughts? Ms. Michelle Milan, your hand up?
Yeah, I don't know if it's appropriate for me to speak or not, since I'm staff and I'm just a liaison to the task force, but
it is absolutely appropriate for you to speak, Michelle. Go
I
ahead.
appreciate that, Deborah. I really do. And so that's what I want to talk about, is that I think that I agree with Randy's assessment. There are a lot of things in this process that we probably could have come to agreement about a lot sooner. But I think one thing that was missing was communication about, the clear goals and objectives, so that we could figure out where there was common ground that we could work on, and really what we wanted our priorities and focus to be. And I can say from a staff perspective, and it's not everybody around this table, I just want to make that clear, I was asked not to speak at meetings. So I'm here as a staff member, obviously support. I do collaboration with a lot of people around this table and in the community all the time. And we did a lot of that at the implementation level. But I think that there needs to be probably some clarity on how we can actually work together. Because, there's things that we might be able to contribute. There's things that we might have been able to help work out. For example, we are currently working on trying to get the Fire in the Explorer program, since we want more Black and brown people to go into law enforcement, up and running and together, so that we can start doing some, local recruiting of who's going to be the face of law enforcement going forward in the future. That would be great to work on with the task force. And I think that that's something that, we could work on together. But I think it's somewhat the structure. And I just also think when requests are made to like Chief Torona or whoever, there's a process for that. And I think that needs to be clear of who's going to do the outreach, if it's CSD, how that happens, so that we're not left feeling like, the task force made these requests and we couldn't fulfill them, or there was information that was needed that we didn't provide. So I think that's what I kind of feel from my perspective. And I think there's a lot of middle ground here that we all want to get to and see in terms of our goals. And it's really about bringing us together in those points.
Thank you for that, Ms. Milam. You said something which really resonates with me. Communication about clear goals and objectives. Sometimes we put people into an environment, and without those clear goals and objectives, we put really good people in really difficult positions. So thank you for that. That's something to be aware of moving forward. Anyone else? Anything else you'd like to say about that particular?
Yes, I will. Hi, my name is BK. I just wanted to add that what went well, one of the things that worked well for me was after, I guess, the aftermath where we are now, I did reach out to the staff and Michelle and LaShonda, and I was looking for someone to speak to about an incident that had happened in Richmond. And as a task force member, I didn't know who I'd get, but I just wanted to say that they were so efficient in getting me to the right person. I was able to ask questions of the captain who assisted me, and I thought that that's how I want to be able to communicate with the department. Is I want to be able to reach out to someone, that protocol, and know exactly who to go to and be put in touch with whomever it is that I need to speak with. So that worked really well, them putting me directly in touch with who I needed to speak with. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Williams.
Linda, I see your hand.
Right. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Linda Whitmore. And I think that I would like for us to have in the beginning to reach out more to the community. We're doing more of that now, but it was after a year of the community not understanding what was going on with this task force, with them feeling that their voices were not being heard, with them feeling that they didn't understand what the communities were going through. And now we're reaching out after we've had a year and a half or whatever of planning and information. But I think we should have had maybe some meetings with the community in the beginning to hear them, to hear what they wanted from this task force, and not coming to them after. So I think if we could have had more, like you said, communication, but also reaching out to the community like we're doing now. Now we're doing a good job at going to the community and explaining what we're doing, explaining what things are happening. But that, I think some of that, even in the planning stages, should have been done with the community in mind.
Thank you very much. Right back to communication.
Right.
Mr. Joseph, your hand is up.
Yeah, for me, I think how the relationship has worked well, again, just like many different people come from different places to come together. I think when people started coming together and trying to figure things out, I think that worked well. I think the implementation subcommittees, having people meeting weekly outside of this and talking about things to get work done, worked really, really well. I feel I kind of disagree with Linda about the public thing. I just think that they didn't want it in the way they wanted the public outreach is not the way they got it. And they felt that they weren't getting heard because we did a lot of public outreach before that. We had community circles where we sat here at Zoom and we went through each phase for like an hour and a half. So I'm kind of confused on there. Maybe that needs to be some clarity. But for me, I think more opportunity improvement is just like having information, like making sure we get it when we like getting the sources to when we get it and all those processes so we can get that information in a timely manner. I think having clear understanding what's going on in the city and not having to change every 2 to 3 months because, you know, this rule has to be done this way or this rule has to be done this way. And to be quite honestly, like most of the task force issues probably wasn't with the police department, it was probably within the task force members themselves and just doing things behind people's backs or bogging down into useless things that weren't needed, that time was wasted and things that getting done and people bringing conversations that didn't matter or just being a detractor. And I think that was more hurtful than anything, the relationship between police and the task force, to be quite honest.
Thank you, Mr. Joseph. Madam Chair, do you see any other hands before I move on? Oh, there you go.
Yes, my hand is up.
Oh, okay, there it is.
But Helen, if you want to go ahead first, I will defer to you. So a couple of things that I want to say. specifically about the relationship between the task force and the police department, the police and fire department. I'm going to say the public safety division of the city. Many of the task force members, not all, many of us came together even before the task force was formed out of a concern about ways to get the city to invest more in human services that address some of the root causes of crime. The goal was to find ways to improve the kind of support we gave to people who were experiencing homelessness, the ability to deal with many of our young people who were underemployed and missing direction, to reduce the level of gun violence in the city. And I believe that there was a concerted decision that was made on the part of the leadership of the police department to portray the efforts of many of the task force members as being punitive towards the police and being designed specifically around the agenda of defunding the police, as opposed to investing in human services. I had this conversation specifically with Chief French shortly after the task force proposals were adopted, to talk about the fact that she really thought that many of us were out to punish the police. And speaking for myself and for some other members of the task force, my point to her was that that was never the goal. It was really about restoring balance to the ways in which city monies were allocated. The fact is that public safety takes up almost 40% of the city budget. Less than 5% is committed to addressing issues like homelessness, mental health services, etc. I see this as a process in rebalancing. It's taken decades for most cities to get to the point of giving the level of funding to police over human services. This is not just a Richmond problem. This is a national problem. It's been decades of disinvestment in human services and an over-reliance on law enforcement as a way to address problems that are basically behavioral problems and public health problems. The goal of many of the task force members has been to try to restore some balance to that process. By having the leadership of the police department portray us as being anti-police and punitive was designed to create animosity and to not create a working relationship. I would like to say that, at least with respect to the chief, that many of those issues have been resolved. I think after the whole process of putting forth the proposals and getting the budget allocations, once that was done, we were actually able to have very effective conversations with Chief French about how those proposals would be implemented, what our goals were, how we could work together. And I think she came to understand that we were not coming from a punitive place, and this wasn't about punishing police so much as it was about improving services for the community. Unfortunately, after she went out on leave, we have had no communication from leadership of RPD. From my perspective, it's been 7-8 months that no one from RPD has taken the time to come and speak to the task force. We meet regularly. We've invited them, but even absent an invitation, they could have come. Chief French did not necessarily wait for an invitation. She came to our meetings and she interacted with us, even if we didn't agree. And so for me, there's been a lack of willingness to continue that engagement, an assumption of bad faith that's been articulated in the community that's not based on evidence and not actually accurately reflecting the goals and priorities of the task force. And given the fact that we will be here for the next 3 years, I think that there's a real opportunity to begin to find ways to work together in partnership with an understanding that we all share the same goals of improving the quality of life and services for the people of Richmond, that we are not here to punish the police, that we are not here to undermine them, that we're not even interested in eviscerating their budget. What we're interested in is increasing the amount of money and support that goes to the much needed human services. And I just want to say that in all the conversations that we've had, no one has ever argued against the task force priorities. No one has said that we didn't need more money for youth employment, that we didn't need more mental health services, that we didn't need more support for the unhoused, and that we didn't need to put more money and support into addressing gun violence. Their only opposition has been the fact that we took some of that money, a limited amount of money, from the police department. But the fact is, the money has to come from somewhere. And so the idea that somehow, because we're arguing to have some rebalancing, that means that we're being punitive and aggressive and adversarial is wrong. So my hope is that in this process, you can kind of communicate that to them and ask them to deal with us in a more honest, forthright way that accurately reflects what we've said and what we've done.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Very passionate discourse, so I do appreciate it very much. Thank you. Ms. Burks, go ahead.
So first, I just want to let y'all know Randy Joseph, he's in the attendees now. And second, I should know better by now than to try to go after Chair Small. It's not always decision, never go first. But what I wanted to just acknowledge very directly is the fact of, it dovetails, I think, with what she was saying, that there's been a lot of assumptions over time, and we all started at very different starting points, right? And all of us, based on our role, our proximity, our who we interact with. Myself, I'm an educator. There's other youth workers here. There's those who work on a variety of things. I won't list them out. We're carrying those experiences in as well. And so this work wasn't, this work was passionate work, right? This work is motivated by a desire to see change. And I think that just even an essence of itself, coming from a place of where there has been harm, where there has been whatever, right? It's going to put people on the defense if that's not your experience, or if you feel like those things are being cited in a way that's personal. And so those are just some of like the human elements that I think contributed to a great deal of, what's the word I'm looking for? Strife will work. And so when we did have, for instance, community meetings at the beginning, you were hearing very raw stories at times of people calling in about abuses and things like that. And that is going to affect, I think, how people feel who work in public safety when they show up in the community meeting. At the same time, there is then the opportunity for an assumption of, well, that means that this, right? Which I think has to do with some of what Chair Small was saying. But I do want to acknowledge that we were all coming from very different starting points, different stories that are being carried with us. And I think our humanness influences a lot of the conflicts that there have been. So.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And again, I really want to respect your time. I love the dialogue we're having. So maybe another 10 minutes or so. And so Ms. White, go ahead.
Thank you so much. And I definitely lean to the chair also to help navigate how much more time you want to spend on this item, considering we do have other agenda items. So I just wanted to mention that. But I do want to just, for the record, state, because I've heard a few things about, there's been invitations to Acting Chief Torona since Chief French's leave, and that no one has come. Chief Torona often has not been able to attend, but he has on numerous occasions offered other members of our PD to come and present information and talk to the task force, his captains. However, I was instructed that people wanted to hear from the chief. And so I just want to point that out for the record, that it's not that no one wanted to come. He was willing to send others. So I just want to make sure that's known, and that there's not the dialogue out there that no one wanted to come or no one was willing to come. Someone was willing to come. So that's all. I just wanted to set the record straight on that. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. And Ms. Malam, is that a new hand or is that an old hand?
It's a new hand, but it will be brief. And I'll just say that one of the things that I think maybe we could do more in terms of communication is making sure people kind of understand where we are as a department. I mean, I've been with the department about 14 years now, and right now is a very challenging time in terms of staffing. It's challenging in terms of, the forced overtime that folks are working, and it's affecting our ability to be able to respond. It affects my job daily. And my unit went from a unit of 2.5 to a unit of 1. But yet we were expected to do 2019 outreach community resources with, 2022 resources. So that has changed the way that we can be able to respond. And I think that we need to do a better job of, articulating and sharing that. And I think also the department's not a monolith. There's a lot of different thoughts within the department about how to approach, public safety and public safety reform and experiences. I've had experiences with police violence, so I understand it from that perspective and that lens too. And maybe there was a way to, to engage. But I do think when we got together in smaller groups, as mentioned, we really broke down a lot of those things. And I hope and look forward to more of those kinds of conversations. And I wanted to say publicly that I appreciated that.
Absolutely. Thank you. Anyone else before I move us on to the next?
Yeah, I want to just say, Devin, this is Deborah Small.
Yes.
I want to make sure that we can address the other 2 questions that you have on your list, because I think it's important that you get input from the task force on those issues. So I want to say, let's try to see if we could do this in the next 10 to 15 minutes, if that's okay.
That's good. Thank you very much for that. We appreciate
Okay.
that. Okay, so then to move us on to the next question, because this part is really important. So as you think about the study that we're undertaking, what outcomes would you like to see from the study? What do you hope to see from it? I think I heard some of the themes that are coming forward so far. We heard about communication, clarity, but specifically for you, what outcomes would you like to see once we present this study? What are you hoping for? Well, I haven't stumped this group. There's no way. What do you hope?
Personally, I would love to see us engage in meaningful discussion about how we can have better lines of communication and dialogue between the community and RPD, specifically those groups of people who are among the most marginalized, meaning our unsheltered population, our population of young people that are not working or not going to school. I think that that it's important for the groups of people that the police tend to spend a disproportionate amount of their time focused on, to have better dialogue and discussion with, to see, like, from my point of view, police are guardians of the public and protectors. So how can they protect those people who are the most marginalized, who are often the people that society thinks that they need to be protected from? So how do we sort of bridge that conversation so that those folks feel that they're protected and the police see them as folks that they are guardians of, not just of the tax-paying, business-owning part of the population, because they're servants for everybody? And how do we create an environment in which folks are actually committed to working together, that we see the police as being people who are committed to serving us, so that we are there to support them in doing their job, and know that they are going to treat us with the level of respect that we deserve.
Thank you again. And we're certainly taking notes of all of that, Madam Chair. Thank you. Anyone else would like to follow that? Oh, Ms. Burks, again, you go ahead.
As an educator, I was really working on that wait time. I was just briefly going to say something we discussed earlier in the year as a priority was how to have more understandable, like visualized, like data and information for the community about the work that RPD is doing. And I think right now there's like the updates that come out, right, of like what happened over the weekend. But I'm thinking about some of the data that I know this group looked at I forget when exactly, where it was really broken down by the different responses, the different kind of frequency of things, what had been the response by RPD for these different ones. And that was one thing that Green Key was an interest in. And I think there's a different technology, someone else is going to correct all this for me, that RPD was already using that has the potential to look at some data that could go to the community. But I think sometimes because it can be difficult to access and understand what is there, it makes a lot of our conversation around the police specifically be very anecdotal, right? And I think that that's a much harder place to move forward or make like data informed decisions. So yeah, just data.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, you're speaking more about a clarity of communication that will help build understanding in the populace between the police and the public. Is that where you're going?
Yeah, and I think it's brings in those elements, right, of like transparency and also accountability, right? Because I know that there are efforts, for instance, that are priorities of RPD of how they're working to respond to certain things. And I think when you're able to see like, okay, this many calls and this is the type of response, here are the things that required any kind of, restraint, here are the things that this, that, and the other, like all of those things, when it's cataloged and presented in a way that's able to be understood, it takes away that element of, well, I've heard this or I've seen this being the only kind of touch point. So less of a running log of here's all the things that happened, but it includes and here's what's been our response. And I think it helps also elucidate like what Michelle is referencing as far as like with staffing, what the impacts are or are not, right? So I think it just makes everything clear.
No, I understand. I thank you very much for that. Ms. Mangles, go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, just to follow up a little bit on what Helen was touching on, one thing that I would love to see come out of this study is a needs assessment of what type of information the community would like to see from the police. Because the police, are willing to provide information, but the way that that information is packaged doesn't necessarily correspond to the kinds of questions that the public have. And I work in data myself, and I know that process of even articulating the kind of data that are necessary, that is a complex process. It is not an easy process. And I know that miscommunications happen in both directions. It's very easy for communication to break down, even among people who do work with data, in terms of like, what do we actually need to see to get at the issues that we do care about? So I would really love for you folks to take some care and some time to understand what our Richmond community, especially as Chair Small has pointed out, our most impacted populations, to really understand what do our people need to understand and see in the data, and then translate that for the police so that they can understand how to package the information, and then take that back again to the community and say, is this what you meant? Because again, as someone who has worked with data, I know that that's an iterative process, and it will be wrong the first few times, and it's something that needs to be done with care. And I would really appreciate and love, especially you folks who do have some serious firepower and background in research. I would really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. It's really appreciated. Okay, anyone else before I move us on to the very last?
Yes, Deborah Small, one more thing.
Absolutely.
How can I put this? Okay, so I think that sort of building on what Laura said about data, but it's also about the ways in which you view things and view data and view what you're looking at. So I'm going to give an example. A lot of the time, the things that the police are policing are not necessarily, are put in the bucket of a particular offense, loitering, panhandling, petty drug dealing. But in reality, what's actually being policed is poverty. Because the truth is that the majority of people who use drugs aren't using them or buying them on the streets. They're buying them in homes. So if you're focusing primarily on the people who are street dealing, you're focusing on the poorest people. If you're focusing on the people who are doing sex work on the streets, you're focusing on the poorest people. If you're focusing on the people who are begging on the streets, you're focusing on the poorest people. And so the ability to sort of be able to disentangle and distinguish the issues that are related to poverty and marginalization, distinguish from criminality, and not automatically put them in the same bucket, so that you're not criminalizing marginalized people for behavior that more affluent people are not criminalized for, speaks to some of the issues of both racial disparities in policing and some of the sense of being disproportionately targeted. So being able to have those conversations honestly and be able to really look at, I did some of that work with Vera Institute in the past around the ways in which they did policing and the ways in which the biases that they had informed how they did the policing without really being fully conscious of it. And it allowed them, once they were able to examine that, to police in a more fair and equitable way.
Absolutely. Thank you. Anyone else? We have 5 minutes left, which I'll take for the last questions if there's no other comments on this last one. Okay, so as you look to the future and you look to the future of the task force, tell me, what role do you see it playing in the future in Richmond? Dream a little bit, look ahead to the future. What do you envision for the task force in the future? Mr. Joseph, go ahead.
Hey, what I envision with this task force could play in the future is looking at best practices to improve the lives and the safety of the community as a whole. I think what got us together was that far too many people think that police equals safety, and safety is so much more than that, right? It's housing is safety, food is safety, mental health is safety, parks and nature and clean air and all those things equal safety. And we're looking at safety as a holistic approach about how we do those things, and task force coming up with best tried and true practices, or trying something for the first time that we might want to see it works, coming back to the table and seeing if it doesn't work. Like taking risks to improve the lives of the community in Richmond is something that I envision this task force supporting within the future, by trying new, bringing out new studies, trying new things, like maybe seeing if universal income is a way to improve the lives of people in safety. Trying to do like giving people housing and trying housing first program to see if that's a way to get people to safety. To get more sustainable food sources in our city, to see if that's a way that we can change public safety. Expanding, especially for our youth. Our youth always get forgotten. They're the first to get blamed, but the last at the table to be part of the conversation on how they envision safety. So coming to the youth table, how they see how safety is for them, and giving them opportunities to grow. So, because like I said, I do this work because so the young people can envision and be adults and be safe and have this city be for them. So trying to figure out ways that they can come to the table and have their own ideas to come back into safety. I think that's what I want to envision.
Thank you so much, Mr. Joseph. Anyone else before we close? Thinking about the future?
I would, Kristen, I have a comment. I would just like to see our programs that are being implemented be able to come to fruition and be successful. That's my biggest passion right now, is to get the community crisis team up and operating. And unfortunately, there are some false narratives, different forces and people that it seems to me, just because they don't agree with this work, don't agree with some of the task force's proposals, it seems would rather them just not be successful and then they can be politically right. And what's so heartbreaking about that is the people who were the marginalized folks in our community that really need these services, whose voices aren't in this meeting. Well, some of them were because they showed up during public comment, but you know, that's who loses out, right? So just let us do the work. We got this far. Like, can we see if it can work, you know? That's my comment.
Thank you. Thank you for that. All right, having
Oh,
said that, go ahead.
The one thing I wanted to just add is that, you know, one of the reasons that I moved to Richmond when I came out here from the East Coast was because it actually, I'm a criminal justice reform advocate. That's what I've spent the last 25 years of my career working on. And Richmond actually has a reputation as being a leader in innovation, in reform, in addressing in gun violence prevention, in employing formerly incarcerated people as community-based interventionists, along with Baltimore and a few other cities. Richmond has actually been a leader in looking at how we can develop more innovative approaches to addressing these issues. I know that the goal of the task force is to support and continue that tradition of innovation that was established in the city more than a decade ago, and to keep us on the cutting edge of evidence-based interventions that actually make a difference in improving public safety and the quality of life for the majority of people. Now, everyone may not agree with what we're doing, but they should not question our integrity in doing it and the goals that we have. I don't have an issue with people disagreeing with me politically or having a different philosophy about how things should be done. What I do object to is having our motives being questioned, of questioning our integrity, of questioning our commitment, of questioning our citizenship, you know, our commitment to this country. I mean, we're giving of our time. None of us are getting paid for this. We've been on this task force now for well over a year, committing hours and hours of our own time because we care about the city and we care about the people who live here. And so what I hope and pray is that we can get to a place where the work that we're doing can be respected, that the contributions that we're giving will be respected, and that the intentions of the people who were here that are bringing their time and effort will be respected and appreciated, whether they're agreed with or not.
Thank you. I will close on that and say, this is the first time meeting all of you. And let me tell you that I hear some really deeply committed individuals, and I would simply say, stay the course, because that's what's required to make a change. So Richard, I'll turn the floor back to you.
Okay, well, just quickly, thank you. This is more time than I expected, but the quality has been really, really amazing for us. So thank you very much for your time this evening. And we're open to coming back, by the way.
I was going to suggest, Chair Small, if you want to invite public comment while we still have Richard and Devon.
Absolutely. Thank you, Allison, because you know I always forget about that. Thank you. Guadalupe, you want to make the announcement? No, it's Stephanie. I'm sorry.
Oh, I mean, it's either of us, but I guess, do we have any public comment?
All right.
Yes, we have two.
Perfect. And we do see the two task force members, Don Gosney, Randy Joseph. So I think it's okay that we can go to the public and then come back to the task force.
Thank you, LaShonda.
My head wasn't raised. Delete me.
You are deleted.
Our first speaker is Katrinka Ruck. Katrinka, you have 2 minutes to speak and you can start now.
Thank you. Just a quick question. Mr. Brady and Mr. Clunas, you were going to put your contact information in the chat room. However, the public cannot see chat room information. So if there's another if there's another way that the information can go out, perhaps in the minutes, and
Sure.
that's my only comment. Thank you.
The next speaker is Steve Bischoff. Steve, you have 2 minutes to speak. You could start now.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Good, great. This has been really fascinating. I really appreciate this interchange and what people have to say, because I think there's been a real difficulty of communication between the task force and much of the rest of the community. And I would love it to be able to facilitate this kind of conversation more, and have the feeling that task force members really understood other concerns in the community other than the ones they're already working on. But I thought this was just wonderful, and I really appreciate the fact that it was possible to listen to it. Thank you.
You. No more hands raised in the attendees. Don, do you want to go? You have 2 minutes and you can start.
Thank you very much. Two issues. First, one of the benefits of owning an online newspaper is I'll reach out to these gentlemen and see if they can put together just a brief little explanation about what they're trying to do and provide their contact information and disseminate it. I have a reach of about 14,000 people between the newspaper, the websites, the Facebook sites, and other social media. So that is one way to help get your message out and get your contact information out there. But one question I had, this is a second of 6 meetings. Where are the other 4 meetings supposed to be? What's the next steps for you?
Those are still to be determined with the city. We don't have actual dates yet, but they're trying to schedule 1 or 2 open town hall kind of meetings, 1 meeting with the business community, and 1 meeting with the alternative service provider community, kind of a focused group on crisis response and medical response and issues like that.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a comment from Vice Chair Walker.
Good evening, everyone. This has been I've been sitting back and I've just been listening. And it's been amazing to hear all of the feedback. The silence is also from other individuals is also something to consider, that some of us might not feel like this is a safe space to discuss what we've been through in this process on this task force, what we've experienced, the attacks, the demeaning behavior that make you not want to come back, that make you not want to continue to support these efforts. I think what I have to say is that it's been an honor to serve on this task force. It's been an honor to continue to serve the city of Richmond. I appreciate everything that the community has invested in to reimagine public safety in the city of Richmond. And I think that dialogues like today are important. And I think safe spaces for people who don't feel comfortable speaking are important to create regarding our experience in this task force. I do want to say that Richmond is #1 in reform because of organizations like the Safer Trump Project and formerly incarcerated people stepping up, making our presence known, and demanding a seat at the table. Direct communities directly impacted by violence stepping up and demanding that the city do more to reduce violence is why Richmond is #1. And when those same communities come to this table and you treat them like they don't belong, then that is problematic. And so I hope that as this effort moves forward, no matter who's placed on this task force, that we consider that everybody who has done the hard work to get us here is valuable, whether we have residency or not.
Thank you. And that was the last public comment.
Well, that was a really fascinating and wonderful conversation, much needed. I'm so happy. And I want to thank the folks from Matrix, Richard. You know, I want to thank you and Devin for coming and spending this time with us today. I think it was really a good exercise to get out a lot of the thoughts and feelings that people on the task force have about the process that we've been engaged in. We're not even midway through. So I hope that you'll come back again in another 3 or 4 months and let us know where you are and get some more input from us. But I just want to really thank you. And I want to thank all the task force members for participating. And Tamisha, I really want to acknowledge what you said. And for folks who don't feel that this is a safe space, I want to encourage people to give their input directly to Devin and to Richard. Their emails were in the chat, but if you need it, I'm going to ask that Stephanie and or Guadalupe include that in the minutes. And if anyone needs that before the minutes are done, you know, to let me know I have it, I'll be happy to send it out to people. And please give them your input. It's great if you can do it in the public forum, but if people don't feel comfortable, I still think it's important that they get all the input from as many of the task force members as possible. Guadalupe, I see your hand is up. Did you want to add something?
Yeah, I guess I would maybe ask if the presenters, maybe if they wanted to update their slides with their emails, if it's not already on there. And that way,
Sure.
maybe the easiest way to, we could upload that tonight and that way it's available for everyone.
So I'll do that.
Cool, thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much again for the invitation. I want this to be more than an exercise. I want this to be part of a catalyst for change. So that's why we're working with you in the community. Thank you.
LaShonda, I see your hand.
Yes, so I just want to say thank you to Devin and Richard. I did put their email addresses in the chat for everyone, which is attendees and panelists. But I also just want to note that I believe we lost quorum. And we are at 10
okay.
and not 11 anymore. Therefore, we will have to, and we're very close to the end of the meeting. Unless someone else is coming on sometime soon, we need to adjourn.
Thank you for that update, LaShonda, because I didn't notice that we had lost someone. So, okay, then I believe we are adjourned until our meeting in July. Everyone have a great evening, stay healthy and productive and safe.
Good night.
Good night, thank you.
all. Good night.
Bye.
Bye.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.